Chapter 1. The Weight of Being Unseen. Leora's hands were raw. The lye soap stung, a sharp contrast to the silky lemon polish she'd spent the morning rubbing into the grand staircase. She worked in the shadows of the pack house, a ghost in a threadbare dress, her entire life a study in being ignored. Tonight was the mating ceremony. For every other eligible female in the Bloodmoon pack, it was a night of hope, of shimmering dresses and fragrant oils, and the electric chance of finding a mate. For Liora, it was just another night to survive. She kept her head down, scrubbing the flagstone floor of the entrance hall, her braid of dull brown hair falling over one shoulder. She tried to make herself smaller, to blend into the stone. If she was unseen, she was safe. That was the first rule she ever learned. A high, tinkling laugh shattered the quiet. Oh look, the pack's little mouse is still cleaning. Didn't you hear the summons, Shadow Girl? Liora froze. Her muscles went tight. Selene. Her stepsister glided into the hall, a vision in crimson silk that shimmered like fresh blood under the torchlight. She smelled of expensive, imported jasmine. Her golden hair was piled high, woven with pearls. Selene was everything Liora was not, seen, celebrated, and cruel. I have more work, Selene. The floors must be. The floors. Selene's laugh was a weapon. She tapped a crimson-slippered foot on the stone Liora had just polished. Nobody cares about the floors, Liora. They care about power. About mates. Things you know nothing about. Leora's gaze dropped to the floor. Humiliation burned hot on her cheeks, a familiar, scalding feeling. She wanted to say something. To defend herself. But the words were heavy, like stones in her throat. Her silence was another rule. Silence kept her safe. Or so she thought. You're pathetic, Selene hissed, her beautiful face twisting into a mask of disgust. She stepped closer, close enough for Liora to smell the wine on her breath. You actually think hiding will save you? You think they'll just forget you exist? Liora scrubbed harder at a non-existent spot. Please, Selene. I don't want any trouble. You are trouble, Liora. Your very existence is an insult. Selene looked around the empty hall, a cruel smile playing on her lips. You know, I find it so funny. You spend your whole life making yourself invisible. But tonight, everyone is going to see you. A cold spike of true fear, sharper than the soap, shot through Leora's chest. What do you mean? Selene leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. You didn't hear? The Elder made a new decree just this morning. All eligible females must present themselves. No exceptions. No hiding in the kitchens. No pretending to be a servant. Leora's head snapped up. Her heart didn't just beat, it hammered. A frantic bird trapped in her ribs. No. He can't. I'm not. Oh, but you are. Selene's smile was all teeth. You're of age. You're unmated. And tonight, you will stand on the platform with the rest of us. She reached out and grabbed Leora's dirty braid, yanking her head back. Liora gasped, her hands flying from the bucket. Let everyone see the pack's dirty little secret, Selene whispered, her eyes glittering with a strange, dark fire. Let them see how worthless you truly are. She shoved Leora's head away, disgusted, and wiped her fingers on her silk dress. Clean yourself up, mouse. You have a ceremony to attend. Selene laughed again, the sound echoing off the polished stone as she sauntered away toward the great hall, leaving Liora alone, kneeling in a puddle of gray water. The numbness she'd worn as armor was gone. In its place, raw terror bloomed. Because Selene was right. Tonight, she wouldn't be a ghost. She would be a target. Chapter 2. The Beast at the Gate. Miles away from the scent of lemon polish, the air smelled of sweat, pine, and churned earth. Alpha Kaelan of Shadowcrest slammed his fist into a thick oak training post. The wood didn't just splinter, it exploded. Shards flew, embedding themselves in the dirt. His warriors, the most brutal and loyal in the territories, kept their distance. They knew this mood. They feared it. Kaelan was a fortress. Tall, broad, and built of pure, disciplined rage. His black hair was slicked back with sweat. Scars, old and new, mapped the hard plains of his chest. But beneath the control, beneath the ironclad discipline of his alphahood, something was breaking. A low growl vibrated in his chest, a constant hum. It was his growl, but it felt like it belonged to it. The beast. The other half of his soul. The part that was clawing its way to the surface. Kaelan. He didn't turn. He knew the voice. Riker. His beta. The only man alive who would dare use his name in that tone. The reports from the southern border can wait, Kaelan grated, his knuckles aching. He clenched his fists, forcing the claws' black, sharp talons back under his skin. It hurt. It always hurt. This isn't about the border, Riker said. He was a solid presence, unmoving. It's about tonight. The Bloodmoon Pack's mating ceremony. Kaelan went utterly still. The growl in his chest surged, turning into a snarl. He whipped around, his eyes flashing a dangerous, icy blue. No. It's a political obligation, Alpha. You know this. We must show respect. We must. Respect? Kaelan laughed, a harsh, barking sound that had no humor in it. They are weak. Their Alpha is a fool. And I will not. He stopped, punching the post again, needing the pain to focus. I will not go. It's not just about them. It's about you, Riker pressed, his voice low. He was playing with fire. The elders are worried. They say you're unstable. That the Shadowcrest line is volatile. The elders can choke on their worries, Kaelan snarled. They're talking about forcing the bond. Kaelan, they think you need a mate to calm you. The word hit Kaelan like a physical blow. Mate. The world went red. He didn't remember moving. 1 second, Riker was 10 feet away. The next, Kaelan had him slammed against a weapons rack, his forearm pressed against his beta's throat. The air crackled. His vision tunneled. The beast was up. It was out. It wanted to tear. To rip. To destroy. Never. Kaelan's voice was a guttural roar, barely human. Say. That? Word. Riker didn't struggle. He just stared back, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and infuriating pity. He choked out a single word. See? The simple, broken word cut through the red haze. Kaelan blinked. The smell of his beta's fear hit his nose. He stumbled back, disgusted with himself. He looked at his hand, his claws were fully extended, black and lethal, inches from Riker's face. He was a monster. He turned away, raking his claws down the oak post, leaving deep, steaming gashes. It's getting worse, Riker, he whispered, the admission tearing him apart. The beast. It wants something. It wants its other half, Kaelan, Riker said, rubbing his throat. It's the mating craze. Your line, it's different. It's stronger. More dangerous. You know the stories. You know what happened to your father. Kaelan flinched. He knew. Oh, he knew. His father hadn't just found his mate. He'd destroyed her. The power of the Shadowcrest bond was too much. Too raw. Too violent. It consumed. That is why I will not go, Kaelan said, his voice flat, dead. I will not risk that. I will not become him. I am a danger to any female the fates try to chain to me. He had to hide his instability because an alpha who couldn't control his own beast was a threat to everyone. You don't have a choice. Riker's voice was firm now, all beta. This isn't a request. It's an order, from me to you as your friend. You will go. You will stand there. You will look bored. And you will not show them the monster. You will show them the alpha. Riker tossed a clean black tunic at Kaelan's feet. The elders are watching, Kaelan. And they aren't the only ones. Your rivals are, too. Kaelan stared at the tunic. It felt like a shroud. Going to that ceremony wasn't a political move. It was walking into a cage and handing his enemies the key. He would go, but he would go as a prisoner, dragged to a fate he'd rather die than face. Chapter 3. The Raven and the Promise. After the Elder's decree, panic had become a cold, hard stone in Liora's stomach. She had been shoved into a small, cold chamber used for storage. Find something to wear, Selene's mother had snapped, not even looking at her. And try not to disgrace us. There was nothing. Just old curtains thick with dust and a trunk of forgotten linens. In the very bottom, beneath a moth-eaten blanket, she found it. A simple, pale blue dress. It must have been her mother's. It was thin and painfully plain compared to the silks and velvets the other women would wear, but it was clean. It felt like armor. Fragile, but it was all she had. Now she stood by the narrow window, waiting for the bells to signal the start of the ceremony. Her hands were shaking so hard she had to clasp them together. She was trying to breathe, trying to find that numb, invisible place inside herself. That's when she saw it. Perched on the stone windowsill, just outside the glass, was a raven. It wasn't a normal bird. It was huge, its feathers so black they looked wet, like slick, dark oil. It tilted its head, and its eye, a bead of onyx, too smart, too aware, stared right at her. It wasn't just looking at the window. It was looking at her. A shiver, colder than the draft from the window, raced down her spine. Ravens weren't common in their territory. They were omens. Whispers of the northern packs. Of the alpha of alphas. The bogeyman used to scare pups into behaving. The Alpha of Shadowcrest. The story said he commanded the ravens, that they were his eyes, his spies. It was a stupid, childish story. But the bird didn't move. It just watched. It saw her poverty. It saw her fear. It saw the girl who wasn't supposed to exist. Why was it looking at her? The door creaked open and Liora jumped, startled. The raven cawed, a harsh, grating sound, and launched itself from the sill, disappearing into the twilight. Talking to your bird friends, Mouse? Liora turned. Selene was there, leaning against the doorframe, a vision of perfection. She held a small, beautifully carved wooden box in her hands. Leora's breath caught. No, please. It was Leora's only possession. Her mother's music box. The one thing she kept hidden under her thin mattress. The one thing that was hers. I was just looking for something to complete my outfit, Selene said, her voice light. And I found this. Trash. It's not trash. Liora cried, taking a step forward. It was the first time she had raised her voice in years. Please, Selene. It was my mother's. Your mother. Selene's face darkened. Your mother was a weak, pathetic Omega who died in disgrace. Just like you will. Selene's hand tightened on the box. Don't, Liora whispered, her whole body trembling. Please. I'll do anything. I won't go to the ceremony. I'll hide. Oh, you'll go, Selene said softly. You have to. Because I want everyone to see you. And with a small flick of her wrist, Selene dropped the music box onto the stone floor. It shattered. The delicate wood split. The tiny gears and springs scattered. The music died before it could even begin. Liora stared at the broken pieces, and something inside her broke with it. The numbness, the fear, it all evaporated, leaving a vast, empty cold. She didn't cry. She couldn't. There, Selene said, dusting off her hands. Now you have nothing. Just like you're supposed to. She stepped up to Liora, grabbing her chin and forcing her to look up. Selene's eyes were bright, almost feverish. Tonight, I claim my mate. I will be Luna. And you. She smiled, a slow, terrible curving of her perfect lips. Tonight, I am going to destroy you. This is a promise. Selene released her, shoving her back. The bells began to toll. The ceremony was starting. Selene paused at the door. Come along, Shadow. It's time for you to be seen. With the music box shattered and the threat hanging in the air, Liora walked toward the Great Hall, not as a woman, but as a sacrifice. Chapter 4. The Sound of Silk Tearing. The Great Hall of the Bloodmoon Pack was a beast of a different kind. It was vast, drafty, and smelled of stale wine, old pine, and the heavy, musky scent of 100 wolves crammed too close. Torches guttered in iron sconces, casting wild, dancing shadows that made the room feel alive and threatening. Liora clutched her hands together, her knuckles white. She had been given a ceremonial cloak at the door, a piece of scratchy, undyed wool. It was a flimsy shield, but it was all she had. She tried to find a corner, a pillar, any piece of shadow that might swallow her. But the decree was clear. All females. On the platform. Line up. Line up, an elder barked, his voice impatient. The other girls, giddy and beautiful in their jewel-toned silks, pushed past her. They were a flock of bright, preening birds, their laughter loud and sharp. Liora felt their shoulders shove her as they passed. She was a stone in their river, an obstacle. She found herself at the very end of the line, a small, gray mouse next to a row of peacocks. She kept her eyes on the floor. Just survive. Just get through this. Be invisible. From a shadowed alcove across the hall, Kaelan watched. He leaned against a stone pillar, his black tunic blending him into the darkness. His arms were crossed over his massive chest. He was a creature of coiled patience, radiating a cold, dangerous energy. Riker stood beside him rigid. Just a few hours, his beta muttered, his eyes scanning the crowd. We show our faces, we drink their terrible wine, and we leave. I can smell their desperation. Kaelan's voice was a low rumble, meant only for Riker. This ceremony. It's a meat market. His beast was a low thrum beneath his skin, irritated by the noise, the smells, the weakness of this pack. He scanned the line of females. They were fine, pretty, eager. They looked at him, their eyes wide, their sense blooming with desperate invitation. He felt nothing. Less than nothing. Then the elder called for silence. Let the mating ceremony begin. A hush fell. Leora's heart was a trapped bird. This was it. And now, my daughter, the Bloodmoon Alpha, Marcus said with a proud, booming voice. Selene. Selene glided to the center of the platform. She was magnificent. Her crimson dress was a beacon. She turned, soaking in the admiration. Her eyes, bright and cruel, scanned the line. They found Liora. Oh, but father, Selene's voice was like sweet, poisoned honey, carrying across the silent hall. We have a guest of honor. She walked toward Liora. Every step was a hammer blow. Liora wanted to shrink, to disappear into the floorboards. Stop, Liora whispered, a tiny, soundless plea. You didn't really think this rag would hide you, did you? Selene hissed, her smile never wavering for the crowd. Before Liora could react, Selene's hands, her sharp, perfectly manicured nails, dug into the wool of the ceremonial cloak. Let everyone see the pack's little shadow, Selene said. And she ripped. The sound of tearing wool was shockingly loud in the quiet hall. It was a scream. The cloak tore away. Liora stumbled, her hands flying up, too late. She was exposed. The hall erupted. Not in outrage. In laughter. She stood there in her mother's pale blue dress, thin, worn, almost translucent under the bright glare of the torches. It wasn't just plain, it was a symbol of her status. Servant. Omega. Nothing. The laughter was a physical blow. It hit her wave after wave. She could feel the stares, hundreds of them, like insects crawling on her skin. She saw the pointing fingers. She heard the whispers. Scraps. Omega. Disgrace. Humiliation, hot and acidic, flooded her. She was drowning in it. She squeezed her eyes shut, her body trembling so violently she thought her bones might shatter. This was it. This was the destruction Selene had promised. Across the hall, Kaelan went rigid. He saw the act. The cruelty. His wolf snarled at the pack's barbarism. It was a display of weakness, not strength. But then, something else happened. A scent. It wasn't jasmine or rose. It was ozone and wild honey. It was the smell of a winter storm and the first fragile flower pushing through the snow. It was faint. And it was coming from her. The girl in the pale blue dress. The one they were all laughing at. As Kaelan focused on her, the scent exploded. It didn't just enter his nose, it slammed into his soul. It was agony. It was hope. It was, mate. The torches in the great hall flickered violently, the flames leaping and dimming as if a hurricane had ripped through the room. The temperature dropped. Every wolf in the hall felt the sudden, crushing pressure of a dominant alpha's power. The laughter died instantly. Kaelan's claws shot from his fingertips, snicked, digging into the stone pillar he was leaning against. The stone cracked. His beast roared in his skull. A single, deafening word. Mate. Chapter 5. The Shadowcrest Cloak. Silence. It was a new kind of silence. Heavy. Terrified. Every eye in the hall was now on the source of the power. The visiting alpha. Kaelan moved. He didn't rush. He didn't run. He stalked. He emerged from the shadows like a panther, his massive frame uncoiling. The crowd didn't just part, they fled from his path, stumbling over each other to get away. His icy blue eyes were locked on the trembling girl. He saw nothing else. Not the shocked Alpha Marcus. Not the pale, suddenly fearful Selene. Not even his own Beta, who was whispering his name in warning. He saw only her. His mate. She was trembling, her eyes squeezed shut, her arms wrapped around herself in a pathetic attempt to hide. She was awash in the scent of her own terror and shame. The beast inside Kaelan, the one he fought every single day, the one he feared would destroy him. It wasn't raging. It wasn't threatening to kill. It was purring. It wanted to cover her. To protect her. To hide her from the eyes that had harmed her. Liora heard the footsteps. Heavy. Measured. They stopped right in front of her. She flinched, bracing for a blow. This was it. The final humiliation. The Alpha himself would cast her out. Instead of a hand, a shadow fell over her. A great black shadow. The air grew cold and she smelled pine. Sharp, clean, and overwhelming. And winter. And iron. Then weight. A heavy, luxurious weight settled over her shoulders. It was a cloak. But not a scratchy wool cloak. This was fur. Thick, next, and impossibly soft, heavy fur cloak engulfed her. It was huge. It drowned her in warmth and a scent so powerful it made her head spin. She gasped, her eyes flying open. Alpha Kaelan of Shadowcrest stood before her. He was a mountain. His face was a mask of cold fury, carved from granite. He was wrapping his own cloak, the massive, black, fur-lined cloak of the Shadowcrest Alpha, around her. His large, scarred hands worked the clasp, his knuckles brushing the skin of her neck. A jolt, hot, sharp, and electric, shot through her. It was like lightning. It stole her breath. Kaelan flinched, his hand recoiling as if her skin had burned him. His eyes met hers. Liora stopped breathing. His eyes weren't just blue. They were the color of a winter sky, glowing with an internal light. They were terrifying. And they were focused on her. He pulled the cloak tighter, hiding her completely. The hem pulled on the floor. The fur collar covered her chin. She was gone, hidden inside his scent, inside his protection. Warm. She was so warm. Only then, when she was secure, did Kaelan turn. He placed himself in front of her, a solid wall of muscle and rage between her and the pack. He scanned the crowd, his gaze a physical weapon. The silence was absolute. His eyes landed on Selene. Her face was ashen. Who? Kaelan's voice was not a shout. It was a growl. A low, vibrating rumble that seemed to come from the stones of the hall itself. It shook the dust from the rafters. He took a step toward Selene. Who touched? His voice dropped even lower. What is mine? The declaration hung in the air. Not a question. A statement of fact. Liora's world tilted. Mine? He had to be mistaken. This was the Alpha of Alphas. The monster from the stories. He couldn't mean. Alpha Kaelan, Alpha Marcus finally sputtered, finding his voice. He was red-faced, his authority challenged in his own hall. That is an Omega. A servant. She is nothing. Pack property. Kaelan turned his head, a slow, predatory movement. His glowing eyes pinned Marcus to his spot. Property, he asked, the word dangerously soft. The air grew colder. Kaelan took a step toward Marcus. You let your pack. He growled, laugh at her. Another step. You let your daughter. He glanced at Selene, assault her. He was now inches from Marcus, towering over the smaller Alpha. She is not property. Kaelan's voice was flat, final. She is mine. Chapter 6. The Alpha's Sanctuary. The words echoed in the stone hall. She is mine. Liora clutched the heavy cloak, her knuckles white. Her mind was screaming. No, this is a mistake. A terrible mistake. He was the Shadowcrest Alpha. The Alpha whose beast was a curse, the one who lived in a fortress of ravens and silence. He didn't take mates. The story said his power was too great, that his line was tainted by a rage that consumed. He was a monster. And he was looking at her like she was the only thing in the room. Alpha Marcus, his face a mask of purple, sputtered with rage. You cannot claim her, Kaelan. She is of my pack. By ancient law, you cannot just take. This was a challenge. A weak one, but a challenge nonetheless. The entire hall held its breath. Kaelan looked at Marcus, his expression one of utter boredom. As if he were scolding a child. You think I am claiming her? Kaelan asked. He almost laughed. The sound was harsh, like rocks grinding together. Here? In this place. He turned his back on Marcus, the ultimate insult. He faced Liora. He saw her. Truly saw her. Her eyes were huge, a terrified, pale gray. She was a bird with a broken wing, and he was a wolf. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that his beast was right. She was his. And he was terrified. Not of Marcus. Not of the pack. He was terrified for her. He had to get her out. He had to protect her, not just from them, but from himself. The mating craze was real. His desire was a physical, aching thing, a need to pull her close, to mark her, to brand her as his. But his father's madness was also real. He had to be smart. He had to use the laws that bound them all. He turned back to Marcus, his voice ringing with absolute, cold authority. I am not claiming her, Kaelan announced. The air in the room seemed to thin. Liora felt a strange, sharp pang of, what? Relief? Disappointment? Not yet, he finished. He raised his hand, silencing the muttering that began. I am, however, invoking the Alpha's right of sanctuary. The words hit the room like a thunderclap. This was an ancient, almost forgotten law. It was a political nuclear bomb. You cannot. Marcus stammered. I can, Kaelan's voice was ice. The law is clear. A wolf, humiliated or endangered within their own pack's hall, may seek sanctuary with another. Your pack's protection has failed. He gestured to Liora, still trembling in his cloak. Therefore, mine begins. He was not taking her as a mate. He was taking her as a protected ward. It was a slap in the face to Alpha Marcus, a declaration that the Bloodmoon pack was too weak to protect its own. Selene looked like she was going to be sick. Her plan hadn't just failed, it had backfired in the most spectacularly public way. She hadn't just failed to destroy Liora, she had handed her to the most powerful alpha on the continent. She will not go, Selene whispered, her eyes full of venom. She is ours. Kaelan ignored her. He looked only at Liora. His face was hard, unreadable. But his eyes were a storm. He was offering her a choice. No, he wasn't. He was giving her a command. But it felt different. You will come with me, he said. His voice was soft, for her alone. Liora looked at him. The monster. The savior. Then she looked back at the crowd. At Selene, whose face promised murder. At Marcus, who saw her as property. At the broken pieces of her mother's music box, shattered on the floor of her mind. This pack was her prison. Selene wanted to destroy her. This man, this terrifying, powerful man, had covered her. She was trapped between two nightmares. But one nightmare had offered her a cloak. She pulled the heavy black fur tighter, letting the scent of pine and winter anchor her. She felt the impossible heat of his body, even from a foot away. Liora took one small, shaking step. And then another. She stopped beside him, a tiny, cloaked figure next to a giant. Kaelan nodded once, a sharp, definite movement. He put his hand on the small of her back. He was careful. His leather-gloved palm rested only on his own cloak, not on her. But she felt the heat of it like a brand, a point of impossible, terrifying safety. He turned, and with his hand guiding her, he walked out of the great hall. The entire pack watched in dead silence. Liora did not look back. She had no home. She had no pack. She was now the refugee of the Alpha who was never, ever meant to be hers. Chapter 7. The Shadowcrest Fortress. The carriage ride was silent. It was a heavy, suffocating silence, thick with things unsaid. Liora sat on the plush velvet seat, feeling impossibly small. She was still wrapped in Kaelan's cloak. The fur was warm, and the scent of pine and cold, clean iron clung to it. It was the only warmth in the chilled night air. Kaelan sat across from her. He was a mountain of darkness, his face turned toward the window, watching the moonlit pines rush by. He had not spoken a single word to her since they left the great hall. His rage, the one that had shaken the room, was now banked. It was a cold, simmering thing, hidden just beneath his skin. Liora was terrified of him. But a small, traitorous part of her whispered, she was more terrified of what she had left behind. Selene's face, pale with fury and humiliation, was a promise of death. The carriage jolted, climbing. They were going up, into the mountains. The air grew thinner, colder. After what felt like an eternity, the carriage slowed. We are here, Kaelan's voice startled her. It was the first sound in hours, a low rumble like shifting rock. Liora peered out the window. Her breath caught. This was not a pack house. This was a fortress. Shadowcrest was carved from the mountain itself. It was a monolith of black stone and dark timber, sharp angles and high towers that scraped the sky. It looked like the mountain had grown teeth. Ravens, hundreds of them, circled the highest tower, their calls echoing in the frigid air. This was a place of power. A place of war. Kaelan opened the door and stepped out. He did not offer her a hand. He simply waited, a towering, impatient silhouette against the massive fortress gates. Liora scrambled out, clutching the cloak. The ground was hard, cold stone. Warriors, dozens of them, lined the courtyard. They were not like the Bloodmoon pack. They were silent, scarred, and disciplined. Their eyes, all fixed on her, were hard as flint. They wore the same black fur as their alpha. She was a mouse in a den of wolves. Alpha, a man stepped from the shadows. He was almost as big as Kaelan, with a thick beard and a face that looked like it had been broken and rebuilt. It was Riker, the beta. His eyes flickered to Liora, curious, before he focused on Kaelan. The preparations are made. Kaelan just grunted. He stalked toward the massive wooden doors, and they swung open, as if by magic. He led her inside. The interior was vast, cold, and shadowed. Banners of a black wolf and a raven hung from the rafters. The air smelled of wood smoke, old stone, and Kaelan's scent, pine and iron. It was everywhere. He led her up a winding staircase, his heavy boots the only sound. He did not stop, did not look back to see if she was following. He just expected it. Finally, he stopped at a heavy, dark wood door. He pushed it open. The room inside was beautiful. A fire was already roaring in a massive stone hearth. A huge bed was piled high with furs. It was a room fit for a queen, not an omega. "You will be safe here," Kaelan said. His voice was rough. Liora just stood in the doorway, clutching his cloak. He turned to her, and the full force of his presence hit her. In the firelight, his eyes were a piercing, icy blue. He seemed to fill the entire room. "This is my wing," he said, his voice strained. "No one enters without my permission. No one will harm you." She could only nod. He stood there for a beat, just staring at her. His chest rose and fell in a deep, controlled breath. But his fists were clenched at his sides. Her scent. That smell of wild honey and ozone. It was everywhere in this room. It was on his cloak. It was on her. His beast, the one he chained down, was screaming. It was clawing at his insides. Ours. Safe. Keep. The urge to slam the door, to lock her in, to cover her with his own body and never let her go, was so strong it made him dizzy. He saw her flinch. She was watching him, her gray eyes wide with fear. She was not afraid of the room. She was afraid of him. That realization was a bucket of ice water. He took a step back, his hand slamming against the stone door frame. He needed to brace himself. His claws, black and sharp, shot out from his knuckles, snicked. They dug into the ancient stone, leaving 4 deep, smoking gouges. Liora gasped, her eyes flying to the marks. Kaelan looked at his hand, at the damage, then back at her. Her terror was a physical blow. He was the monster. He was his father. "Stay," he growled. The word was torn from him, a desperate, angry command. "Here." He turned and fled the room, slamming the heavy door behind him. The boom echoed down the hall. Liora was left alone, her heart pounding against her ribs, staring at the claw marks in the stone. He had saved her, yes. But she was now locked in a fortress with a beast who could not control himself. Chapter 8. The Mark on the Field. Liora was a prisoner. A very comfortable prisoner, but a prisoner all the same. She had been in the beautiful room for 2 days. Servants, silent women with hard faces, brought her food and water. They left clothes for her, simple, warm tunics and leggings of black and gray. The Shadowcrest colors. But Kaelan did not return. She was alone, with the echo of that door slam and the sight of those claw marks burned into her mind. On the 3rd day, she couldn't stand it. The room was a cage. The fire was too warm. She had to move. She had to breathe. She crept from the room. The Alpha's wing was silent. She followed the hallway, her bare feet silent on the cold stone, until she found a side door. It opened onto a vast, windswept training field. It was nothing like the muddy yard at Bloodmoon. This place was lethal. Weapons racks were filled with blades she did not recognize. Posts were shattered, like Kaelan's in the woods. And in the center, a group of females were fighting. They weren't preening. They were training. They fought with knives and fists, their movements sharp, economical, and brutal. Liora watched from the shadows, awestruck. These women were warriors. "Look what the Alpha dragged in." Liora froze. 3 of the women had stopped training. They were walking toward her. The leader was tall, with a nasty scar on her cheek and cold, black eyes. "He brought you," the woman sneered. "The little Omega mouse from Bloodmoon?" I was just..." Liora stammered, taking a step back. "The Alpha's new pet," another one mocked. "He gives you his cloak, and you think you're Luna." "She smells like nothing," the leader said, disgust clear in her voice. "She has no rank. No power. Why are you here?" "Please," Liora whispered, "I don't want any trouble." "You're trouble," the scarred woman said. "You're a weakness. And he never brings weakness here." She got closer, looming over Liora. "He must have brought you here for us. To train on." The woman shoved Liora. Hard. Liora stumbled, falling onto the hard-packed dirt. A sharp stone cut her wrist. She cried out, more in shock than pain. "Touch her." Again. The voice was not a voice. It was an earthquake. Kaelan was there. He had come from the fortress, moving so fast, so silently, she hadn't even seen him. He wasn't the controlled Alpha. He wasn't the man in the carriage. This was the beast. His eyes were not blue. They were solid black, a void of pure rage. A low, rumbling growl was shaking his entire body. He grabbed the scarred woman. He didn't just push her. He lifted her, one-handed, off her feet and slammed her against the weapon's rack. Blades rattled. "Did I give you permission," he snarled, his voice a guttural roar, "to touch my mate?" The word hit the field. Mate. The other two women fell to their knees, their heads bowed. The scarred woman was choking, her face turning purple. "Alpha, please, we didn't know. You laid your hands on her," he roared. Liora scrambled to her feet. "Kaelan, stop. Please, you're hurting her." He froze. Her voice. It cut through the red haze. He turned. His eyes were still black. His claws were fully extended. He looked like a nightmare. And he was looking at her. Liora's breath hitched. The woman he was choking was forgotten. His focus was total. He saw the cut on her wrist. He saw the dirt on her cheek. He dropped the woman. She fell to the ground, gasping. He took a step toward Liora. "Did they hurt you?" His voice was shredded, raw. She looked at him, the claws, the black eyes, the terrifying, possessive power. She looked at the woman on the ground. She looked at the other two, still kneeling in fear. This wasn't protection. This was monstrous. Liora did the only thing she could. She took a step back. His face, his monstrous, enraged face, just broke. The black receded from his eyes, leaving that shocked, icy blue. The claws retracted. He looked at her, then at his own hands, then back at her. He saw her fear. He saw that she was terrified of him. He had failed. He had scared her. He was his father. Without another word, he turned and stalked away, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. Liora was left alone on the field, the three women scrambling to get away. Her heart was pounding. He had called her his mate. She rubbed her wrist where it had been cut. A sharp, stinging pain made her look down. It wasn't just a cut. Where the stone had marked her, the skin was changing. A faint, swirling pattern, like a dark shadow or a wisp of smoke, was blooming under her skin. It looked like a raven's wing. It hadn't been there this morning. Chapter 9. The Stepsister's Offer. Liora found a small, walled garden on the south side of the fortress. It was the only place she felt like she could breathe. It was overgrown, filled with tough, mountain herbs and a single, gnarled pine tree. It was the only place she had not seen another soul. The mark on her wrist was a secret. She kept it covered. It was a faint, dark gray swirl, and sometimes she thought it moved. She sat on a cold stone bench, pulling Kaelan's cloak, which she still hadn't taken off, tighter. It had been a day since the training field. Kaelan was gone. He was avoiding her, and she was glad. But she was also confused. When he had defended her, even in his rage, a part of her, a tiny, broken part, had felt safe. She hated that. She hated him for making her feel it. A noise. A scrape of a boot on stone. Liora's head snapped up. She wasn't alone. A man was climbing over the garden wall. He was not a Shadowcrest warrior. He was thin, wiry, and his eyes were a sickly, desperate yellow. He wore the rags of a rogue. Liora sprang to her feet. "You're not supposed to be here." The rogue's eyes landed on her. On the cloak. The black fur of the alpha. His lips peeled back in a snarl, revealing broken, yellow teeth. "So, you're the one," he rasped. "The alpha's little pet. He'll pay a lot to get you back." He lunged. Liora screamed. She threw herself backward, tumbling over the stone bench. The rogue was fast. He was on her in a second, his hand clamping over her mouth, his other hand, armed with a rusty knife, pressing against her throat. "Make a sound, and I'll cut you, little bird," he hissed. His breath was hot and smelled like rotten meat. Suddenly, the rogue was gone. It was that fast. 1 second, he was on top of her. The next, he was flying through the air, thrown by a black blur. Kaelan. He landed in a low crouch between Liora and the rogue. He didn't rage. He didn't roar. He was a picture of cold, lethal calm. "Riker," Kaelan said, his voice a flat, deadly command. The beta appeared on the wall, along with 2 other guards. The rogue scrambled to his feet, but he was surrounded. He was trapped. Kaelan didn't even look at the rogue. He was focused only on Liora. He walked to her, his movements controlled, and knelt. "Are you hurt?" His voice was low, careful. He kept his hands clenched, no claws visible. Liora was shaking so hard she couldn't speak. She just shook her head, her eyes wide. He saved her. This time, it wasn't a beast. It was an alpha. It was a warrior. He had saved her. A tiny, fragile tendril of trust started to unfurl in her chest. Alpha, Riker called. He sounded urgent. He had tackled the rogue and was holding a piece of parchment. We found this. On him. He wasn't alone. The border patrol caught 2 others. Kaelan rose, his eyes never leaving Liora. What is it? It's a map, Riker said, his face grim. A map of this fortress. Of the garden. And a message. Kaelan finally tore his gaze from Liora. From who? Riker walked over, his face pale. He held out the parchment. It wasn't for the rogue. He was just a messenger. The message is for Alpha Silas. Leora's blood went cold. Alpha Silas. The rival Alpha. The one who wanted Kaelan's territory. It's an offer, Riker said, his voice heavy. He looked at Liora, his eyes full of pity. It's from your pack, Liora. From your stepsister, Selene. Kaelan took the parchment. He read it. His entire body went rigid. What does it say? Liora whispered, her voice trembling. Kaelan looked up. His face was granite. His icy eyes were burning with a new, terrifying light. She's offering Alpha Silas a truce, Kaelan said, his voice a low, deadly growl. An alliance. He crushed the parchment in his fist. And she's offering you as the price. Chapter 10, The Weight of the Legion. The rogue was gone, dragged away by Riker, but Kaelan remained. He stood in the center of the walled garden, the crushed parchment still clutched in his fist. He was a statue of black fur and silent rage. The sun was setting, painting the sky in violent streaks of orange and purple, and the cold mountain air was settling fast. Liora stayed on her bench. She was shaking, but not from the cold. She was shaking from the words. She offered me, to Alpha Silas? Leora's voice was a thin, reedy sound, barely a whisper. It was a stupid question. She had heard. But she needed the world to make sense again. Kaelan turned. His face was a mask, his blue eyes cold as the glaciers on the northern peaks. Yes. Because I am here? Because she thinks I am with you. Because she is a viper, Kaelan stated, as if it were a simple fact, like the sky being blue. And because Silas wants anything that is mine. Your stepsister just handed him a perfect, breathing excuse to start a war. Leora's stomach twisted. So I am a weakness. The women on the training field, they were right. No, his voice was sharp. He took a step toward her. You are a target. There is a difference. He stopped, a few feet away. He was watching her, his gaze intense, analytical. He was trying to figure her out. She, in turn, was trying to do the same. This man had saved her. He had clothed her. He had called her his mate. And he had clawed the stone of her doorway. Why? Liora asked, the question popping out before she could stop it. Kaelan's brow furrowed. Why what? Why does Selene hate you? Why does Silas want my land? No, Liora said, finding a small, fragile sliver of courage. She met his gaze. Why you? Why did you claw the door? Why did you look like that on the training field? They all fear you. But it's not just respect. It's terror. She had to know. If she was the cause of a war, she had to know the man she was hiding behind. Kaelan's face went blank. It was a defense. A heavy iron door slamming shut. You do not ask me questions. You called me your mate, she cried, frustration making her bold. You dragged me from my home, you brought me to this fortress. And now my own stepsister is trying to have me killed because of it. I think I have a right to ask questions. She was breathing hard, her chest heaving. She expected him to roar, to shut her down. Instead, he just looked tired. He walked to the garden wall and pressed his forehead against the cold, rough stone. He looked, for a split second, like a man carrying a weight too heavy for one person to bear. You do not understand, he grated, his voice low. Then make me, she whispered, her anger gone, replaced by a sudden, aching curiosity. He was silent for a long time. The ravens cawed in the distance. The wolf, he began, his voice rough. It is not like other wolves. The Shadowcrest line, it is old. Ancient. The beast is not a partner. It is a thing. A primal rage. It has no conscience. No control. It only has one instinct. He turned, his face a landscape of shadows and self-loathing. To possess. Leora's breath caught. My father, Kaelan said, his voice flat, dead. He found his mate. He was happy. For a week. And then the beast, the Leakin, decided she was his. It did not want to share. Not even with my father. Liora felt a cold dread creep up her spine. He lost control, Kaelan whispered, the shame radiating from him in palpable waves. He held her too tight. He crushed her. The beast loved her to death. Liora's hand flew to her mouth. Oh, gods. Now she understood. His control. His isolation. His terror on the training field. It wasn't that he was angry at her. He was terrified of himself. That is what lives inside me, Kaelan stated, his blue eyes locking with hers, forcing her to see the truth. It is a monster. A cage of rage. And what you? He gestured between them. This bond, it is the key. Liora looked at this powerful, terrifying alpha, who was not a monster, but a man haunted by a monster. The fragile tendril of trust bloomed, warmer this time. She took a small step toward him. What would a mate do to it? To you? Kaelan's face twisted in pain. He looked away, turning his head back to the stone wall, hiding his expression. He could not answer. He would not. And that silence, that raw, visible shame, was more intimate than any touch. Chapter 11. The Burning Mark. That night, the conversation hung in the air of her room, heavy and charged. Liora could not sleep. She paced the rich carpets, Kaelan's massive cloak still wrapped around her. He loved her to death. His words, his shame. It was a stone in her own stomach. He had shown her his deepest wound. She had seen the man, not the alpha. And it terrified her. Not because he was a monster, but because he was not. She felt a strange pull. A need to, what? Comfort him? An alpha? It was absurd. She walked to the door that connected her room to the rest of his wing. She pressed her hand against the thick, dark wood. She could feel a faint vibration. Was he on the other side? Was he pacing too? She rubbed her wrist. The mark. The raven wing swirl. It had been itching all day. A low, irritating tingle under the skin. As she thought of him, of his pain, the itch intensified. It became a sting. Liora hissed, pulling her sleeve back. The mark was darker. The faint gray lines were now stark black against her pale skin. It looked like a fresh tattoo. She felt a wave of dizziness. Kaelan, she whispered, though she knew he could not hear her. A sudden, sharp pain lanced through her wrist. It was not a sting. It was fire. It was a hot iron poker, shoved against her skin. Liora screamed. She collapsed against the door, her knees buckling. The pain was not just in her wrist. It shot up her arm, into her shoulder, and exploded in her chest. It was agonizing. The mark. It was burning. It felt like it was moving, like the raven wing was trying to tear itself from her skin. But the pain was not the worst part. With the pain came feeling. It was not her feeling. It was his. She was flooded with a wave of emotion so strong it was drowning her. Loneliness. A vast, cold, glacial loneliness that was so deep it had no bottom. And beneath it, a hot, swirling chaos. Rage. Need. A desperate, primal hunger that was terrifying in its intensity. It was the beast. She was feeling his beast. The dormant, unwanted mate bond had just snapped awake. Crash. The connecting door, the one she was leaning against, did not open. It exploded off its hinges, shattering into 1,000 pieces as Kaelan burst through. He was a nightmare. He was half-shifted. His face was elongated. His teeth were fangs. His eyes were solid, burning black. His claws were out, and his massive body was trembling with a power that shook the room. He looked at her. His gaze was not human. It was the gaze of a predator. The one he had warned her about. Liora scrambled backward, crab-walking away from him, her heart trying to escape her chest. She was screaming, but she couldn't hear it over the roaring in her ears. Kaelan, she cried. He took a step toward her. The floorboards groaned. He was feeling it, too. The burning. The connection. He was awash in her terror, her pain, her scent. The bond was a two-way street, and it was on fire. He saw the mark on her wrist. It was glowing, a dull, angry red under her skin. He saw her terror. That finally cut through the red haze. Her terror of him. No, he growled. The word was a shredded, inhuman sound. He looked at his own claws. He looked at her, crying on the floor. He saw his father. He saw his mother, broken and dead. This was it. The mating craze. The poison of his bloodline. It was starting. And it was violent. He stumbled back, as if she had physically pushed him. He slammed his body against the ruined doorframe, his claws digging into the stone. "No," he said again, his voice cracking. He was fighting. He was fighting himself. He looked at her, his eyes a swirling vortex of black and blue, of beast and man. The terror on his face was as great as her own. "Don't," he choked out, his voice raw with a desperate plea. "Do not. Come near me again." He turned and fled, a blur of shadow and pain, leaving her alone in the ruined doorway, the agonizing, burning bond thrumming between them. Chapter 12. The Banishment. Kaelan did not stop running. He burst from his wing, a half-shifted monster, and fled to the only place he was safe. The catacombs. The deep, cold, ancient stone beneath the fortress, where the air was dead and no one could hear him scream. He slammed his fists into the rock wall. Pain. He needed pain. He needed something to focus on besides the pull. It was a physical, tearing thing. An iron chain, hooked to his soul, yanking him back toward her. He could feel her. Her fear. Her confusion. Her pain. It was a symphony of agony, and it was all his fault. He had been a fool. A stupid fool. He thought he could keep her close. He thought he could control it. He loved her to death. His father's ghost was laughing at him. He roared, a long, animalistic sound of pure self-loathing. He hated this. He hated the beast. He hated the fates. He hated that they had given him a mate, only to turn him into the weapon that would destroy her. Alpha. Riker. His voice echoed in the darkness. He was standing at the entrance to the crypts, holding a torch. His face was pale. "You felt it," Kaelan grated, his voice still shredded by the beast. He forced his claws back, his knuckles bleeding. "The whole fortress felt it," Riker said, his voice grim. It was like a scream in the air. "The bond. It is active." "It's violent," Kaelan spat, turning to face his beta. "It's not a bond, Riker. It's a curse. It wants to possess her. And I almost let it." The shame of that moment, of her looking at him with such pure terror, was worse than any physical pain. "I cannot. I will not be him," Kaelan whispered. Riker was silent for a moment. "What are your orders, Alpha?" Kaelan squeezed his eyes shut. He knew what he had to do. It was the hardest decision of his life. It felt like tearing off his own arm. "Move her," he said, his voice dead. "Alpha, move her. Now. To the guest wing. The farthest tower. Put a full guard on her. 2 outside her door. 2 in the hall. She is not to leave. And I am not to enter." "Kaelan." Riker started, his voice soft. "It is for her safety." Kaelan roared, the beast surging again. "She is not safe near me. My wing is not safe. The beast, it knows she is there. It will not rest. Get her out. Before I hunt her in my own home." Riker's face hardened. He understood. He nodded once. "At once, Alpha." Liora was waiting. She had huddled in her room for an hour, the adrenaline fading, leaving her cold and trembling. The door was shattered. He hadn't come back. She was abandoned. Again. She heard footsteps in the hall. Her heart leaped. "Kaelan?" It was Riker. His face was grim, unreadable. He was followed by 2 armed guards. "Liora," he said, his voice formal. "You are being moved." "Moved?" Leora's voice was small. "Where? Is Kaelan, is he all right?" "The Alpha is occupied," Riker said, avoiding her gaze. "It has been deemed that your current quarters are not secure." "Not secure?" she asked, looking at the broken door. "You will be taken to the East Tower. It is safer." A cold dread settled over her. The East Tower. The guest wing. She knew where that was. It was on the other side of the fortress. It was as far away from the Alpha's wing as one could get. This wasn't protection. This was a banishment. He was pushing her away. After everything. After the bond. After feeling him. The fragile, stupid trust she had started to feel, it shattered. It turned to ice. Of course. Why would he want her? The worthless Omega. The shadow girl. He had felt the bond and it had disgusted him. He had run. "I see," she said, her voice hollow. She pulled the black fur cloak tighter. It was all she had of him. She stood, her small frame rigid. She walked past Riker, her head held high. She would not cry. She would not show them how this broke her. As the guards escorted her through the cold, echoing halls, Liora felt it. The bond was still there. It was a dull, throbbing ache. An open wound. Far away, in the kitchens, a new servant girl, hired that very afternoon to help with the extra provisions for the guards, watched the small procession pass. She had pale, cruel eyes and a faint, almost unnoticeable scent of jasmine. She waited until Liora was gone, then slipped away to the Raven's rookery. Selene's spy was in. Chapter 13. The Wolf Market. The East Tower was a cage, just a colder, bigger one. Liora had been there for 3 days. 3 days of silence. The bond, that burning, agonizing fire, had cooled. It was now a dull, constant throb. A phantom limb. An amputation. She knew Kaelan was alive, but the connection was muted by distance and, she feared, by his sheer iron will. He had banished her. He had felt the bond ignite and had recoiled in disgust, pushing her to the farthest corner of his fortress. The humiliation was a familiar, cold cloak. She was a thing to be hidden. A mistake. She paced the stones of her room, the black Shadowcrest tunic hanging off her small frame. She had to get out. Not out of the fortress, but out of this room. "I am going for a walk," she announced to the 2 guards outside her door. They were statues, their faces impassive. "Our orders are to ensure your safety, my lady," one said, his voice rough. "I am not safe if I go mad," she snapped, her voice surprising her with its sharpness. "I need air. There is a courtyard. You can watch me, but I will not stay in this room." The guards exchanged a look. The little Omega mouse was growing claws. "Riker's orders allow for courtyard time. We will flank you." The courtyard was a small, high-walled square used for knife training. It was ugly, but it was outside. Liora walked to the center and tilted her head back, letting the cold mountain wind whip her hair. She closed her eyes, just to feel something other than the 4 walls of her prison. "That's her." The voice was a low whisper. It was not from the guards. Leora's eyes flew open. On the high wall, silhouetted against the gray sky, were 2 men. They were not Shadowcrest warriors. They were thin, wiry, and dressed in dark, patched leather. They smelled wrong. Not like wolf. Like rust and chemicals and a sick, greasy hunger. "Look at the mark," the second man said, his voice greedy. "You can see it glowing from here. The prize." Liora looked at her wrist. The raven mark was a faint, dark swirl under her skin. It was not glowing. Before she could scream, the men dropped. They landed in a crouch, moving with a speed that was not human. They held dark, coiled ropes. "Nets." The guards shouted, drawing their blades. "Intruders. Protect the girl." But these were not rogues. One of the men threw a small glass orb at the ground. It shattered, releasing a plume of thick, acrid smoke. Liora choked, her eyes burning. The guards coughed, disoriented. "Grab her," the first man yelled. "She's worth a king's ransom. And Alpha's bonded. The Wolf Market will pay anything for a taste of that." "Wolf Market?" Liora scrambled backward, her terror a cold, sharp blade. These were not warriors. They were traffickers. From across the fortress, Kaelan shot to his feet. He was in the war room, ignoring Riker's report on border patrols. He had been staring at a map, his mind lost in the dull, aching silence of the bond. Then a spike. Not an ache. A white-hot, razor-sharp spike of terror. It was her. He did not just feel her fear. He smelled it. Strangers. He smelled the chemical tang, the oily scent of unknown, greedy males. He moved. He was a black wind. He crossed the fortress in 30 seconds, his long strides eating the distance. He did not roar. He did not shift. This was a cold, calculated fury. He burst into the courtyard. The smoke was thick. He saw his guards down, fighting the acrid air. He saw Liora cornered. He saw the man with the net lunging for her. Kaelan's speed was a blur. The crack of the trafficker's arm breaking echoed off the stone walls. The man screamed, a high, thin sound. Kaelan did not stop. He grabbed the second man by the throat, lifting him clear off the ground. "Who?" Kaelan's voice was a flat, deadly vibration. "Sent you." The man clawed at Kaelan's wrist, his face turning purple. "Wolf. Market. Just scouts." "You are poor scouts," Kaelan said. He snapped the man's neck. A simple, efficient movement. He dropped the body and turned to the first man, who was clutching his ruined arm. Kaelan knelt. "You have 10 seconds to tell me who gave you our location." The man, weeping, pointed a trembling finger. Not us. A spy. We just followed a map. From a Bloodmoon messenger." Kaelan's eyes narrowed. "Selene." He stood. The smoke was clearing. His guards were on their feet, ashamed. Liora was huddled against the wall, her eyes wide, her face pale. She was too far away. This tower. This banishment. It was not protection. It was a vulnerability. He had pushed her away to keep her safe from himself, and had left her exposed to the world. He stalked over to her. She flinched as he approached. This, he stated, his voice a low growl, was a mistake. He grabbed her arm. Not gently. You are coming with me. He did not wait for an answer. He dragged her from the courtyard, past the stunned guards, past the dead traffickers. He towed her back to his wing, to her room. The one with the new, reinforced door. He pushed her inside. You will stay here. And you, she whispered, her voice shaking. Will you run again? Kaelan looked at her. He looked at the bed. He looked at the open space of the room, and he felt the beast clawing at his ribs. He turned, walked out of the room, and closed the door. Leora's heart sank. He had left. Again. Then she heard it. A heavy thud. She crept to the door and looked through the peephole. Kaelan was in the hallway. He had not left. He had simply sat. His back was against her door. His arms were crossed. His eyes were closed. He had not banished her. He had become her prison guard. Chapter 14. The Space Between. The silence was a breathing thing. Liora sat on the edge of the bed, her hands clenched in her lap. He was right there, 10 feet away on the other side of a thick slab of oak. She could hear the faint shuff of his armor as he breathed. This was not a banishment. This was a new, exquisite kind of torture. The bond, which had been a dull ache from the East Tower, was now a live wire. It was a humming, thrumming, needy thing. It was aware. It knew its other half was close. It wanted. It pulled. It demanded. He felt like her skin was too tight. She could not sleep. She could not rest. She could smell him. That scent of pine and iron, it was faint, but it was there, seeping under the door, filling her senses. She was his prisoner. He was hers. In the hallway, Kaelan was in his own personal hell. He sat, his spine pressed against the door. He felt every move she made. He heard her pace. He heard her sigh. He heard the rustle of the sheets as she lay down. He was meditating, his hands resting on his knees. He was trying to find his center, his control. But the beast was pacing. It was not raging. It was purring. It was a deep, satisfied rumble in his chest. Ours is close. Ours is safe. Ours. The possessiveness was a warm, thick blanket, and it terrified him. He was losing. He was fighting a war on 2 fronts, one against the traffickers and Selene, and one against the monster in his own chest. Hours passed. The fortress was dead silent. Finally, he heard her breathing deepen. Her movements stopped. He let out a slow, controlled breath. She was asleep. Liora was asleep. But it was not a peaceful sleep. It was an exhausted, dream-filled collapse. She was back in the great hall. The torches were too bright. The laughter was too loud. Selene was there, her crimson dress like blood. He's not coming, Mouse, Selene's voice echoed, slithering into her ear. He left you. Liora looked to the shadows, to the alcove where he had been standing. It was empty. She was alone. The crowd surged, their hands grabbing at her, tearing at her clothes. No, she whimpered. Kaelan. He left you. Selene's laugh was a shriek. He always leaves. The hands were pulling her down. The floor was opening up. She was falling. No. Liora woke up with a raw scream tearing from her throat. She was bolt upright in bed, her heart hammering, her body slick with sweat. The door exploded open. It did not swing. Kaelan hit it with his shoulder, his full weight, thinking she was being attacked. The wood splintered from the frame. He was there, a terrified. When she had needed him, he had come. But when he had wanted her, he had fled. She was a temptation. A disease. A curse he was trying to rid himself of. Anger, cold and sharp, replaced the fear. She was sick of this. She was sick of being a pawn, a prize, a burden. She was not a thing. She stormed from her room. The guards tensed. My lady. The Alpha's orders. I am going to the garden, Liora snapped, her voice clear and cold. I need air. Are you going to stop me? The guards looked at each other. This was not the trembling mouse from Bloodmoon. This was something else. They stepped aside. She marched to the small, walled garden. Her sanctuary. She paced the stone path, her fists clenched. She was furious at Kaelan. She was furious at Selene. But most of all, she was furious at herself for the part of her that ached when he had pulled away. My lady? Liora turned. It was the servant girl, Lila. The one with the kind, empty eyes. She was holding a small tray. You seem upset. I thought. I brought you some tea. It has mountain herbs. For calming the nerves. Leora's anger faltered. A kind gesture. It was so rare it felt like a lifeline. Thank you, Lila. Thank you. Lila smiled. It is my pleasure. Liora took the warm ceramic cup. It smelled strange, earthy, and bitter. It is a special Shadowcrest blend, Lila supplied. Liora drank. She was desperate for anything to calm the storm inside her. The tea was bitter, but she drank it all. For a moment, nothing. Then, the world went gray. The sharp, angry edges of her mind grew fuzzy. The bird calls from the pine tree sounded muffled, far away. Her limbs suddenly were made of lead. A wave of dizziness hit her. Lila, Liora whispered, reaching for the stone bench. What was in? The Alpha is a fool. Lila's voice was no longer kind. It was cold. Sharp. He was so worried about the monster inside, he never saw the one he led in his house. Lila's smirk was the last thing Liora saw before the world tilted. She slumped onto the bench. The bond. The constant, humming, aching connection to Kaelan. It was gone. It did not fade. It was cut. Sliced away. The sudden, silent void was terrifying. She was alone. She was truly, completely alone. The garden gate opened. Leora's head was too heavy to lift, but she saw the boots. Then the crimson cloak. Hello, mouse. Selene. You. Leora's tongue was thick. She could not move. She could not scream. Me, Selene said, her voice bright. She walked over and brushed Leora's hair from her face. Her touch was poison. Did you really think he wanted you? My goodness. You are a disease, Liora. You infect everyone. But do not worry. I am the cure. Two large, masked rogues entered the garden. They were the ones Alpha Silas had promised. He cannot even smell you now, Selene whispered, her voice full of triumph. That tea? A special blend. It dampens everything. Even that filthy, unnatural bond. You will be long gone before he even knows to look. The rogues grabbed Leora's arms. She was dead weight. They dragged her toward the gate. Across the fortress, Kaelan slammed his fist onto the war table. The map cracked. Alpha? Riker asked, his voice cautious. Kaelan could not breathe. He had been empty. Sick. He thought it was just the aftermath of the night. The self-loathing. But this was different. The bond. The ache. The thrum. It was gone. The silence was a physical scream in his mind. It was not a rejection. It was an amputation. Liora. His voice was a whisper. He was on his feet. He was moving. He did not run. He flew. He burst from the war room, his guards scattering. He roared her name. He skidded into the garden. Empty. The world narrowed to a single point. He saw the cup. Smashed on the stones. He felt his knees. He picked up a shard. He smelled it. Sedative. Aconite. And jasmine. The scent from the mating ceremony. The scent of Selene. It was a trap. The traffickers. The border skirmishes. It was all a distraction. Riker ran in behind him. Alpha. What is it? What? Kaelan stood. He turned. His eyes were not black. They were not the wild, crazed eyes of the beast. They were the color of a dying star. Cold, brilliant, and full of murder. She is gone, he said. The quiet of his voice was more terrifying than any roar. Selene. She was here. She took her. He closed his eyes. He was not speaking to Riker. He was speaking to the monster he had chained. Find her. He threw his head back. He did not scream. He roared. But it was not a normal shift. His bones did not just break. They exploded. His body expanded, growing, tearing. Black fur burst from his skin. His hands elongated into claws like scythes. He did not fall to all fours. He rose. He stood 7 feet tall. A perfect, unholy union of man and wolf. The Leakin. It was not the crazed beast. It was a cold, calculating god of death. He roared again. The sound was not a sound. It was a shockwave. It shook the fortress to its foundations. It was not a cry of pain. It was a declaration of war. Chapter 16. The Gilded Cage. Liora woke up to the smell of rust and damp stone. Her head was a sack of wet sand. Her tongue was thick, gummy, and tasted of the bitter herbs Lila had given her. Lila. The betrayal was a sharp, cold sting, cutting through the fog of the drug. She was moving. Jolting. The rhythmic thud of a wagon wheel on a rutted, primitive road. She tried to lift her hands. They were bound. Thick, rough rope bit into her wrists. She was in a wagon. And she was not alone. Awake, little mouse? Good. I was afraid you would miss the party. Leora's heart stopped. Selene. She forced her heavy eyelids open. Selene was sitting across from her, a vision in a midnight blue riding cloak, her golden hair in a perfect, severe braid. She looked radiant. Happy. Liora, in contrast, was in a cage. It was a small, brutally functional cage of black iron, bolted to the floor of the wagon. It was just big enough for her to sit, hunched over, her knees drawn to her chest. Where? Leora's voice was a dry croak. We are going to a party, Selene said, her voice bright. Alpha Silas is so excited to meet you. You are the guest of honor, after all. He is very generous. He gave me 10 warriors and this lovely carriage, just to ensure your safe arrival. You betrayed your pack, Liora rasped, the words heavy. Selene laughed. A high, tinkling sound that held no humor. I saved my pack, Shadow Girl. You are a disease. You infected Kaelan. You made him unstable. He defied my father. He humiliated me. She leaned in, her eyes narrowing. This is not betrayal, Liora. This is a correction. A cleansing. Leora's mind, slow and thick, was finally catching up. The traffickers, that was you. A test, Selene said, waving a dismissive hand. A little experiment to see how far he would go. To see if the bond was real. And, oh, it is. The way he nearly killed those men? Exquisite. Alpha Silas was very pleased with the report. The wagon lured to a halt. Leora's cage rattled, slamming her against the iron bars. We are here, Selene said, her voice dropping to a theatrical whisper. The wagon door opened, flooding the space with gray, sickly light. They were in a ruined courtyard. A fortress, but an ancient, crumbling one. This was Silas's territory. It smelled of decay and stale, wet fur. The rogues from the garden pulled her cage from the wagon and dumped it on the ground. Liora cried out as her bones jarred against the metal. Careful. Selene snapped. The merchandise must be pristine. The rogues carried her like an animal to the center of the courtyard. They used a chain to hoist the cage into the air, leaving it to dangle from the branch of a dead, black tree. Liora was a spectacle. A piece of bait hanging in a trap. He will come for you, you know, Selene said, standing beneath the cage, looking up at her. Her face was a mask of triumph. That is the entire point. He will kill you, Liora whispered, her terror so profound it was almost calm. He will try, Selene corrected. But Alpha Silas is very, very smart. And Kaelan. She smiled, a slow, cruel smile. Kaelan is just a beast. A predictable, stupid beast. He will come, all rage and no thought. And he will walk right into a silver trap. And I will be the one who helped bring down the monster of Shadowcrest. Law, of course. This was never just about Liora. It was about Kaelan. It was about power. Selene turned to walk away, her job complete. Liora was left alone, spinning slowly in the cold, damp air. She felt a tear, hot and sharp, escape her eye. It was not a tear of fear. It was a tear of pure, unadulterated sorrow. She had been invisible, then a target, then a burden, and now bait. She was so alone. The bond, the one she had hated and feared, was silent. The drug had worked. She could not feel him. She was cut off. The air in the courtyard did not just grow cold. It died. The temperature plummeted. A sudden, violent downdraft extinguished the torches on the wall. The wind, which had been a breeze, stopped. A sound. It was not a sound. It was a pressure. A vibration in her bones. A low, guttural rumble that came from the stones, from the air, from everywhere. Selene, who had been walking away, froze. Her face went white. A dozen of Silas's guards, who had been hidden in the ruins, stepped out, their silver blades glinting. They looked nervous. The sound came again, louder. Roar. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated rage. It was the sound of a god of death. At the ruined edge of the courtyard, a shadow detached itself from the other shadows. It was not Kaelan. Not the man. It stood on 2 legs, a nightmare of black fur and shadow. It was 7 feet tall, its shoulders as wide as the fortress gate. Claws like black scythes, a foot long, flexed at its side. But the eyes were the worst. They were not human. They were not beast. They were 2 pits of burning, cold shadow. The Leakin had arrived. Chapter 17. The Monster and the Mark. The Leakin took a step into the courtyard. The ground crunched under its massive, clawed feet. Silas's men were wolf warriors. They were hard, scarred, and used to violence. They were also, quite suddenly, terrified. It is just a beast, one of them yelled, his voice cracking. Silver. Use the silver. For warriors, their faces pale but resolute, rushed forward. They held long pikes, the tips glinting with polished silver. The Leakin did not pause. It did not roar. It just moved. It was a blur. A storm of black fur. Liora, from her cage, could only watch in mute horror. The first man lunged. The Lycan did not meet the pike. It moved inside the man's guard, its claws a black flash. The man's head, still wearing a shocked expression, flew from his shoulders. The second man screamed and tried to run. Kaelan, the thing that was Kaelan, caught him by the leg, lifted him, and slammed him into the stone wall hard enough to leave a red, wet stain. The other two warriors, seeing this, turned. They were going for the cage. For her. No! Liora screamed, her voice breaking. The Lycan heard. It inhaled, a sound like a furnace igniting, and launched itself across the courtyard. It landed on one of the warriors, and the sound of rending metal and breaking bone was sickening. It tore the man apart. The last warrior, his eyes wide with madness, did not run. He lunged, not at Kaelan, but at Liora's cage, the silver pike aimed at her heart. A second black-clad figure slammed into him. Riker. The Shadowcrest Beta drove a blade into the man's ribs. Shadowcrest. To the Alpha. Warriors, Kaelan's warriors, poured into the courtyard. The battle was instant, brutal, and swift. Silas's men were good, but Kaelan's were a unified, disciplined force. But they were not fighting with their Alpha. They were fighting around him. The Lycan was not a soldier. It was a force of nature. It was killing everything. It did not differentiate. It grabbed one of Silas's men and one of Selene's rogue guards and slammed their heads together, the crack of their skulls echoing in the chaos. Liora watched him. This was the monster he had warned her about. This was the beast that had crushed his mother. He was lost. He was pure, unthinking rage. Selene. Liora scanned the chaos, her heart pounding. Selene was gone. The coward had fled, slipping out during the first moments of the fight. My Alpha, the cage. Riker yelled, finishing off another rogue. The Lycan turned. It saw the cage. It saw Liora. It stalked toward her, its movements still animalistic. Kaelan, she whispered. A young Shadowcrest warrior, a girl Liora had never seen before, saw the Lycan approaching the cage. The girl, Alara, must have thought Liora was still in danger. She ran, trying to get between the Lycan and the cage, her hand out. Alpha, no. Wait. She is safe. The Lycan did not see a warrior. It did not see an ally. It saw something, another wolf, moving toward his mate. It roared, a terrifying sound of pure possession, and it backhanded the girl. Its claws were still extended. The blow was not meant to warn. It was meant to kill. Liora screamed. The sound of the impact, of armor crumpling and ribs shattering, was the loudest sound in the world. Alara flew 20 feet, a broken doll, and hit the far wall. She did not get up. Silence. The battle stopped. The Lycan froze. It looked at its own hand, its black claws dripping with the blood of its own pack. It looked at the unmoving form of Alara. It looked at Liora. And in that moment, the monster vanished. The rage, the possession, the shadows in its eyes, they evaporated. Kaelan was left, his Lycan form shaking, his human eyes, blue and horrified, staring at her through the bars. He had done it. He had proved himself. He was his father. He was a poison. He stumbled back, his body visibly shrinking, the black fur receding, his bones shifting. He was in agony, but it was not physical. He looked at Liora, his face a mask of such profound self-hatred that it broke her heart. A single, broken whisper reached her. A sound meant only for her. I have to reject you. Chapter 18, The Unmaking. The courtyard was a graveyard. Silas's men were dead. Riker was kneeling over Alara, his hands glowing with a faint healing light. He was a beta. He could not fix what an alpha had broken, but he was trying. She was breathing. Barely. It was not a victory. It was a desecration. Kaelan stood in the center of the carnage. He was human again, but he looked broken. He was covered in blood, none of it his own. His chest was heaving. He was at war with his own body. Riker, his voice was a hollow rasp. Riker looked up, his face grim. Alpha. The cage, Kaelan said. He could not look at it. He could not look at her. Open it. Now. Riker, his hands stained with his own packmate's blood, rose. He grabbed the keys from a dead rogue and walked to the cage. He did not meet Liora's eyes. He was ashamed. He was furious. He unlocked the door. It swung open with a rusty, terrible groan. Liora did not move. She was frozen. Get out, Liora, Kaelan commanded. His voice was dead. She stumbled from the cage. The moment her feet hit the bloody stone, she felt the world tilt. The drug was still in her system. But Kaelan did not move to help her. He did not touch her. He stood 10 feet away. A chasm. Kaelan, she whispered. Her voice was trembling. What are you doing? I am saving you, he said. His voice was flat. The one way I have left. She knew. Her heart, her physical heart, seemed to stop. No, Kaelan. Please. You are not yourself. It was the Leakin. I am the Leakin, he roared. The sound was so full of pain, so full of self-loathing, it made her flinch. There is no difference. I almost killed Alara. I almost killed one of my own. Because she got too close to you. He raked his hands through his hair. I am my father. The bond, it is not a bond. It is a poison. It makes me a monster. It will not control me. It will not use me to kill you. I am not afraid of you, she lied, her voice shaking. You should be, he bellowed. He took a step toward her, and she took an instinctive step back. His face crumbled. See? You should be. He closed his eyes. He centered himself. When he opened them, they were dead. Empty. I, Kaelan, Alpha of the Shadowcrest pack. His voice was formal. It was a blade. No, Liora whispered, her hands flying to her chest. No, Kaelan, please. Do hereby sever the bond of fate, he continued, his voice shaking but gaining strength. Each word was a physical blow. Liora felt it. The mark. The raven wing on her wrist. It burst into flame. A white-hot, agonizing fire. She screamed, clutching her arm. It felt like her skin was being melted from the bone. I sever the tie of mate. The fire in her arm shot into her chest. It was not a bond. It was her heart. It felt like it was being ripped in two. A cold, black, gaping void opened up inside her. Kaelan, stop, she screamed, falling to her knees. You are killing me. He faltered. He saw her pain. His own face was a mask of agony. He was clutching his own chest. He could feel it, too. The tearing. I am saving you, he whispered, tears streaming down his face. This is the only way. He took a deep, shuddering breath. He raised his head. I reject you, Liora of Bloodmoon. The words hit. The bond snapped. It was not a clean break. It was an explosion. Kaelan was thrown to his knees, a raw, animal sound of pure agony ripped from his throat. Lyra did not make a sound. Her eyes, wide and full of a pain he would never understand, locked on his. The light in them, it just went out. She did not faint. She did not weep. She crumpled. A puppet with its strings cut. She fell to the cold, bloody stone and did not move. Her heart had failed. Liora, Kaelan whispered, the agony of the rejection forgotten. He scrambled to her. He rolled her over. She was limp. Her face was pale, her lips blue. She was not breathing. No. He shook her. Liora, wake up. This was supposed to save you. Riker was at his side. Alpha, her heart, it could not withstand the rejection. Kaelan looked at her peaceful, dead face. He looked at his own hands. He had not saved her. He had murdered her. Chapter 19, The Healer's Verdict. Liora, wake up. Kaelan's roar was a raw, broken thing. He was on his knees in the blood and mud, her limp body gathered in his arms. He pressed his ear to her chest. Nothing. No breath. No heartbeat. Just a cold, terrible silence. Liora, he screamed, a sound of pure, animalistic denial. He shook her, his movements frantic. No, I did not mean it. Wake up. That is an order. Liora. Riker was at his side, his hands hovering, useless. Alpha, she is gone. She is not gone. Kaelan bellowed, his eyes wild. He looked up, his gaze landing on Riker, his face a mask of murder. You let me do it. You let me kill her. I did not know. Riker countered, flinching but holding his ground. Get her. Kaelan barked, his voice cracking. Get Morwen. Now. Riker nodded, already sprinting toward the small, armored wagon where the healers were tending to the wounded. He returned a moment later, half dragging a small, ancient woman whose gray hair was bound in a tight, practical braid. She was Morwen, the pack's oldest healer, and she did not look impressed by the carnage. She looked at the broken warrior Alara, then at the Alpha cradling a dead girl. She walked, with infuriating calm, to Kaelan. Fix her, Kaelan ordered, his voice a broken plea. You will bring her back. Morwen knelt. Her sharp, intelligent eyes swept over Liora's pale face, her blue lips. Then her gaze fell on the mark on Liora's wrist. It was a dull, ashy gray, the lines blurred. The healer's eyes snapped up to Kaelan. There was no pity in them. Only a cold, deep accusation. What did you do? She asked, her voice a rasp. I rejected her, Kaelan choked out. To save her. From the beast. From me. Morin looked at him for one long, cold moment. You fool, she said, her voice flat. You magnificent, arrogant fool. You have killed her. I know that. Kaelan roared, the pain so great he wanted to rip his own skin off. Now fix her. You think this was a simple mating bond? Morin snapped, her anger finally showing. You, an alpha of the Leakin line? Your bond is not a suggestion, it is an absolute. It is an anchor for your very soul. She pointed a gnarled finger at Liora's wrist. But you did not even see what was in front of you. This mark. This was not just a bond. Kaelan stared at the ashy swirl. What is it? It is a curse, Morin said, her voice grim. An ancient one. I have only seen it in the old texts. A parasitical tether. It fed on the bond. It was woven into her life force. It required your connection to keep her heart beating. That is why she was so frail, so unseen. The curse was draining her, and the bond was the only thing keeping her alive. Kaelan's blood turned to ice. So when I rejected her, you did not just sever the bond, Morin explained, her voice sharp. You starved the curse. You cut its food source. And the curse, in its death throes, has consumed its host. It has consumed her. You did not just break her heart, Alpha. You unmade her soul. Kaelan looked at Liora's face, so peaceful. He had done this. His fear. His self-loathing. He was a murderer. Then reverse it, he demanded, his voice a low, desperate growl. You are a healer. Heal her. Undo the rejection. I cannot, Morin said. A true rejection, spoken by an alpha, is a final word. It cannot be undone. No, Kaelan whispered. No. There must be a way. Her heart has failed because the magic that tied her to you is now a void, pulling her apart, Morin said, her voice softening just a fraction at his utter despair. Then what do I do? He begged, his forehead touching Liora's. Tell me. I will do anything. The old healer looked at him. A rejection cannot be reversed. But the bond, the connection, it is not truly gone. It is shattered. Broken into 1,000 pieces. There is only one thing strong enough to reforge a break this complete. Kaelan's eyes snapped to hers. What? Not a reversal. A new bond, Morin declared. You must reclaim her. Right now. Here. You must overwrite the rejection with a claim so absolute, so total, that it does not just mend the bond, it replaces it. You must choose her. Kaelan recoiled. But the beast. Morin, you saw. Ilara. If I claim her, I will. I will break her. Morin grabbed his tunic, her small, gnarled hand surprisingly strong. Listen to me, Alpha. If you do not, she is dead. She is dust. Your beast is the poison, yes. But it is also the only antidote. The true bond, your choice, not the fates, only that is strong enough to kill the curse and heal her heart. Now choose. Kaelan looked at Liora's pale, lifeless face. He had to choose. Risk becoming the monster he feared, or live forever as the coward who let her die. Chapter 20. A Confession in the Dark. He scooped her into his arms. Her body was a cold, terrible weight. Riker. Kaelan roared. His beta was there, his face a mask of grief and shock. Ilara. Take her to the fortress. She is a warrior of Shadowcrest, and she will be honored, Kaelan ordered, his voice thick. She lives, Alpha, Riker said, his voice strained. She is broken, but Morwen's apprentice, she breathes. A tiny razor-thin sliver of relief cut through Kaelan's despair. He had not killed his own. Not yet. Good, Kaelan grunted. Now, take the men. Secure this place. Find Selene. Find Silas. I want them alive. I want them to watch. He turned and strode into the most intact part of the crumbling keep, a small, dark room that might have been a guardhouse. He laid Liora on a dusty cot. He was gentle. So gentle. Morwen followed him in. Her pulse is a thread, Alpha. A spider's silk. You have minutes, if that. Kaelan knelt beside the cot. He was shaking. His hands, which had torn men apart, were trembling so hard he could not control them. I cannot, he whispered. He looked at the old healer, his blue eyes wide with a terror she had never seen. Morin, you saw. I am him. I am my father. The moment I bite, the beast will take over. I will crush her. Morin stepped back. Then she dies. The choice is yours, Kaelan. But your father, he let the beast take him. He gave in. You're fighting. That is the only difference that matters. She left the room, pulling the heavy door almost shut, leaving them in the near darkness. He was alone with her. A tiny hitch sound. A ghost of a breath. Liora. He looked at her face, so still. All the fear, the anger, the pain, it was gone. She was just Liora. Morwen was right. He had to choose. But he could not just take. He could not just bite her. A true claim. A choice. He took her small, cold hand in his. He lifted it to his lips, trying to breathe his own warmth into her. Liora, he whispered, his voice breaking. Liora, hear me. I know you're in there. I know. I know you can hear me. You have to fight. You have to come back to me. He rested his forehead against her cold one. And he spoke. I am a fool, he whispered, the tears he had held back for a lifetime finally falling. They dripped onto her pale cheek. I am a coward. I have been so afraid. My whole life. Afraid of this. Afraid of the power. Afraid of the beast. I saw what my father did. And I swore I would never be him. He choked on a sob. And then I saw you. In that hall. So small. So brave. And the beast, it did not roar, Liora. Not at first. It wanted to protect you. It wanted to cover you. He clutched her hand tighter. I pushed you away. I kept running. Not because I did not want you. Gods, Liora. I ran because I did. The mating craze, it is not just rage. It is desire. A need so strong it burns. I wanted you. I wanted to claim you. To mark you. To keep you. And I knew if I did, I would break you. Just like he broke her. His voice was a raw, shredded thing. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I hurt you. I scared you. I abandoned you. I rejected you. And I was wrong. I was so wrong. The beast, it is not the enemy. My fear is. I was so afraid of the monster, I became one. I let it kill you. He was sobbing now, the great, cold alpha, broken on the floor. You have to come back. You have to. Because I cannot. I cannot live in a world you are not in. I love you, Liora. I love you so much. I will not let you go. He pressed his lips to hers. It was not a kiss of passion. It was a plea. A promise. Under his lips, her skin, which had been so cold, flashed with a sudden, impossible heat. The raven mark on her wrist, which had been gray and dead, ignited. It glowed a faint, pure, silver light. Liora's eyelids flickered. A single, ragged, sharp breath shuddered through her body. Kaelan pulled back, his eyes wide. Morwen, he roared. The healer was in the doorway instantly. She looked at Liora. A slow smile spread across her face. Her heart. It is beating. Your confession. Your choice, Alpha. It has anchored her. You have called her soul back from the void. Kaelan looked at Liora, who was breathing. Shallowly. But breathing. But it is not enough, Morwen warned, her voice urgent. You have bought her time. The curse is re-anchoring. It will either kill her, or it will be satisfied. You have anchored her, Alpha. Now, you must claim her. Choose her above the curse. Choose her above your fear. Finish it. Kaelan looked at Liora's face. The despair was gone. The self-loathing, while not gone, was pushed aside. In its place was a new, terrifying, and absolute resolve. He would not be his father. He would be her mate. He lowered his head, his fangs descending, and nuzzled the soft, pale skin of her neck. Then claim you I will, he whispered. Chapter 21. The War for Luna. He was about to bite. He was about to make the final, irrevocable choice. Crash. The door to the keep slammed open. Alpha. Wait. Kaelan's head snapped up. His eyes flashed, a dangerous mix of human blue and Leaken black. He snarled, a low, warning sound. Riker burst into the room, his armor dented, his sword bloody. Silas. He is here. He is in the main tower. He has barricaded himself and she is with him. Selene. Kaelan's blood, which had been hot with desire, went cold with rage. He has Alara, Riker panted, and Kaelan's world stopped. He must have doubled back. Snatched her while we were distracted. He has her on the ramparts. He says if you do not surrender, he will throw her over. Kaelan looked at Liora. She was breathing. Her eyes were closed, but she was alive. She was on a knife's edge. Then he looked at the door. One of his warriors. One of his pack. A hostage. Morwen, Kaelan's voice was a flat, deadly calm. Stay with her. Keep her alive. No matter the cost. Alpha, Morwen said, her face grim. She is stable, but she is not safe. The claim, it is not finished. The curse is still fighting for her. You must end this, and then you must finish this. Do not wait. Kaelan stood. The despair was gone. The self-loathing was gone. In its place was a cold, pure, righteous fury. He walked to the door. Riker. Alpha. I want every warrior we have. I want a perimeter on that tower. I want archers on every wall. Silas wants to trade? He wants to make demands. Kaelan drew the massive greatsword from his back. The shing of the steel was the only sound. We do not trade with terrorists, Kaelan stated. Alpha. Riker said, his voice low. Liora is a warrior of Shadowcrest, Kaelan finished. And she would expect us to end this. Not to surrender to this filth. He looked at his beta, his eyes burning. He put his hands on what is mine. He used Liora. He allies with that viper. He dares to threaten my pack. Kaelan looked at his own hands. He clenched them. He felt the beast, hot and wild, just under his skin. But it was not a monster. It was his. The beast is not my master, Riker. Not anymore. It is my weapon. He looked back at Liora, peaceful on the cot. I am not fighting it anymore. I am fighting for her. There is a difference. He strode out into the bloody courtyard, Riker at his side. His warriors saw him. They saw the cold fire in his eyes. This was not the broken man who had rejected his mate. This was their alpha. Warriors of Shadowcrest, he roared, his voice echoing off the stones. Alpha Silas hides in that tower. He pointed his blade. He hides behind Silver. He hides behind our wounded. He thought to break us. He thought to take from us. He took our Luna, a warrior cried out. And he threatens our pack. Kaelan roared back. He will not have either. He will pay for touching both. A cheer went up. We will take that tower. We will save Liora. And we will bring me the heads of Silas and Selene. He turned to his warriors. Stay behind me. Fight with me. If you fall, I will avenge you. If I fall. He paused. Do not let them reach her. He turned, not running, but stalking, a black-clad god of vengeance, his great sword held in one hand. His warriors fell in behind him. Riker, Kaelan said, his voice low. Get me to that rampart. The final battle had begun. Chapter 22, The Wolf and the Will. The tower was a rotten tooth. Kaelan took the steps 3 at a time, his greatsword a whisper of steel in his hand. Riker and his best warriors were behind him, a silent, black-clad storm. The tower was too quiet. Silas was waiting. He was setting a trap. Kaelan did not care. He was the trap. He burst onto the rampart. The wind howled, cold and sharp, whipping his hair. The scene was exactly as Riker had described, and it was 1,000 times worse. Silas was there. The rival Alpha was thin, not muscular, with a cunning, fox-like face. He held a long, silver-bladed knife. And he was holding it to Liora's throat. The young Shadowcrest warrior was tied to the stone parapet. She was pale, her breathing shallow from the wound the Leakin had given her. She was a broken offering. Selene was there too. She was huddled near the doorway, her face pale, her beautiful silk dress torn and stained with mud. She was no longer a queen. She was a rat trapped with the others. Kaelan. Silas smiled. It was a horrible, stretched-thin smile. You came. I knew you would. You are so predictable. Kaelan stopped. He was 20 feet away. He did not look at Liora. He did not look at Selene. He looked only at Silas. His blue eyes were not raging. They were flat. Cold. The color of a winter execution. Let my warrior go, Kaelan said. His voice was not a roar. It was a command. Oh, I do not think so, Silas purred. He pressed the silver blade, just a fraction. A new line of red bloomed on Liora's neck. You see, I have your warrior. And I have your little pet. He nodded at Selene. And you're a monster. But you're a monster with a weakness. You are wrong, Kaelan said. He was not talking to Silas. Back in the guardhouse, Liora's eyes flew open. She gasped. She was not on the cot. She was on the rampart. She could feel the wind. She could smell the blood. She could see Silas. Morwen, she gasped, clutching the healer's arm. I can see. I am there. Morwen's eyes were wide. The bond. It is not just feeling. He has opened his soul to you. You are sharing, girl. You are one. Liora saw Silas raise the knife. She felt Kaelan's muscles tense. He is going to kill her, Liora whispered, her voice full of terror. Then stop him, Morwen said. On the rampart, Kaelan was moving. But Silas was faster. He kicked a loose stone. It skittered. Kaelan's eyes flickered. It was the opening Silas needed. Silas was not a fool. He threw Liora at Kaelan. Kaelan had to choose. Catch his warrior or kill the alpha. He chose his warrior. He grabbed Liora, shielding her body with his own. And Silas was on him. The silver knife flashed. Kaelan roared as the blade bit deep into his shoulder. The silver burned. It was agony. It was poison. The beast rose. The Lycan, in a wave of pain and rage, surged to the surface. Kaelan's eyes flashed black. He threw Liora aside, a snarl ripping from his throat. Yes! Silas screamed. There is the monster. The beast that cannot be controlled. He lunged again, the silver blade aimed at Kaelan's heart. Kaelan was lost in the red haze. He was too slow. The pain, the silver, the rage he was losing. No! The voice was a whisper in his mind. But it was not his. Kaelan. I am here. He froze. Silas's blade was an inch from his chest. I am not afraid. I choose you. I am with you. Liora. It was not a memory. It was her. She was in his head. She was in his soul. She was not afraid of the beast. She was holding it. The red haze did not vanish. It cleared. The rage did not go away. It focused. Kaelan's eyes, which had been black, returned to a brilliant, impossible blue. But they were the eyes of the Lycan. He was in control. Silas lunged. Kaelan did not move like a man. He moved like a shadow. He caught Silas's wrist. The silver blade stopped. Silas's eyes went wide. You can control it, he whispered, his voice full of a sudden, terrible fear. It is not it, Kaelan growled. His voice was a perfect, terrifying mix of man and beast. It is me. He shattered Silas's wrist. The knife clattered on the stone. Silas screamed. Kaelan did not stop. He was not a raging monster. He was an executioner. He grabbed the rival Alpha by the throat. He lifted him. This, Kaelan said, his voice a low growl, is for Liora. He slammed Silas into the wall, the stone cracking. This, he roared, is for Liora. He slammed him again. And this, he whispered, is for daring to think I was a monster. He threw Silas from the rampart. A single, long scream, and then, silence. Kaelan stood, breathing hard, the silver knife still buried in his shoulder. He turned. Riker and the warriors had Liora. She was safe. Selene was cowering in the corner, her face a mask of pure terror. Kaelan walked toward her. He pulled the silver blade from his shoulder, hissing as the metal came free. He threw the poison knife. It landed, thunk, in the wood of the door, inches from her head. You, he said. You are nothing. You are not worth my rage. Riker. Alpha. Take her. Put her in the deepest, darkest cell. She will rot. But she will not die. I want her to live a long, long time. In the dark. Unseen. He turned, not giving her a second glance. He was bleeding. He was in agony. But he was smiling. He had to get back to his mate. Chapter 23. The Choice and the Calm. He moved through the ruined keep like a wounded bull. His warriors tried to help him. Alpha, your shoulder. The silver. Is nothing, Kaelan growled, shoving them away. He did not care about the fire in his arm. He did not care about the blood running down his back. He cared only about the small, stone room. He burst through the door, his chest heaving. She was there. Liora was on the cot, just as he had left her. But she was not pale. Her eyes were open. They were open, and they were looking right at him. Morwen was in the corner, a small, knowing smile on her face. Liora, he breathed. He stumbled, his legs, which had carried him through a war, suddenly weak. He felt his knees at her bedside. He was a mess. Covered in blood. His own and Silas's. He was sweating. He was shaking from the silver poisoning. He looked, in every way, like the monster she should fear. Liora, her hand trembling, reached out. She did not flinch. She did not cower. She laid her small, warm hand on his bloody cheek. You are hurt, she whispered. Her voice was weak, but it was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. It is nothing, he whispered, nuzzling into her palm. He had never, in his entire life, known a touch so gentle. You were there. I was, she said, her eyes filling with tears. I saw. Kaelan, I saw the beast. Anne. I was not afraid. It is you. He closed his eyes, a great, shuddering breath tearing out of him. I heard you. You saved me. You saved me from myself. No, Liora said, her voice finding a new, fragile strength. We saved each other. Alpha. Morwen's voice was sharp, cutting through the moment. They both looked. The old healer was pointing. Her finger was aimed at Liora's wrist. The raven mark. Kaelan's blood ran cold. He had forgotten. The battle. The victory. The curse. The mark was back. It was a dark, ugly, angry-looking smear on her skin. It was pulsing. A slow, venomous beat. You won the war, Alpha, Moen said, her voice grim. But she is still losing hers. The curse is still here. It is angry. You have anchored her. She has chosen you. But the magic is not complete. What do I do? Kaelan asked, his terror returning. The rejection is broken, Morwen said. The bond is forged. But the claim, the physical mark, it is not finished. You must finish it. You must mark her. You must override the curse with your own mark. Your Alpha's mark. It is the only thing that will burn the other one out. Kaelan looked at his hands. They were covered in blood. He was weak from silver. He was a beast. He looked at Liora. Kaelan, she whispered. She saw the fear in his eyes. The self-loathing. The same, old enemy. You are afraid, she said. I am a monster, Liora. I am covered in blood. I am weak. The beast. I used it. It is too much. Liora did something that changed the world. She smiled. A small, weak, but real smile. She slid her hand from his cheek to the back of his neck, her fingers tangling in his sweaty hair. She pulled him gently. Then be my monster, Kaelan, she whispered. Be mine. He stared at her. This small, brave, impossible woman. She was not afraid. She was welcoming him. All of him. The moon is high, Alpha, Morwen said from the door. The goddess is watching. It is time. Kaelan nodded. The fear, the doubt, the ancient, crippling self-hatred, it did not vanish. But it no longer mattered. He slid his bloody, shaking arms under her. He lifted her. She was so light. He stood, his muscles screaming from the silver. He did not care. He carried his mate, his Luna, out of the dark, bloody room and into the clean, cold moonlight. Chapter 24. The Mark of the Moon. He carried her past the wreckage of the courtyard. He did not stop. He walked past his warriors who were tending the wounded. They saw him. They saw her alive in his arms. And they bowed. Every warrior. Even Riker, his face grim, bowed his head. Kaelan did not stop until he reached the rampart. The same one where he had defeated Silas. But he walked to the far end, away from the blood. He sat on the cold stone, his back to the parapet, overlooking the vast, silent range of the Shadowcrest Mountains. The full moon was a perfect, silver eye in the black sky. It poured its light down on them. He held her in his lap. She was small, and she was his. He was still bleeding. The silver was afire in his veins. But it did not matter. Liora, he whispered, his voice rough. He was not an alpha. He was not a beast. He was just a man. I am not whole. I am broken. I am a creature of rage and fear. I am not good. Liora looked up at him. The moonlight made her pale skin glow. It turned his black hair to silver. Kaelan felt it. He growled, his teeth still locked. He pushed his own power, his own alpha, his own soul, into the bite. He was not just marking her. He was burning the curse out. The black mark shriveled. It turned to ash. It peeled away from her skin, a puff of dark smoke in the moonlight. And underneath, where the curse had been, her skin was clean. It was healed. And on her neck, where his teeth were, his mark began to glow. A faint, beautiful, silver light. He released her, pulling back. Liora was panting. Her face was flushed. Her eyes were bright. The weakness, the sickness, the invisible shadow that had clung to her. It was gone. She was radiant. She was seen. He looked at her, and his heart, which he thought was a dead, black thing, felt like it was going to explode. He felt a sudden peace. The fire in his shoulder from the silver, it was gone. He looked at the wound. It was healing. She was healing him. The beast in his chest, the one that had always raged? It was not raging. It was purring. It was calm. It was home. Liora reached up and touched the new, glowing silver mark on her neck. It was his mark. The mark of the Shadowcrest Alpha. Kaelan, she whispered. He bent, and he kissed her. It was not a kiss of war. It was not a kiss of desperation. It was a kiss of beginning. He had been emotionally shut down. He had been terrified of hurting his mate. She had been invisible. She had been afraid to be seen. Now, under the silver eye of the moon, he was vulnerable. He was brave enough to love fully. And she was chosen. She was powerful. And she was, finally, healed.